suddenly I become more anxious, preoccupied, which was so odd because I might have had some periods in my life where I think I was a little bit more anxious, but I've never been this anxious in my life as I was 7, 8 years ago when I got my divorce. And I describe it as a little girl. Imagine a mother and you're clinging. You're clinging to that leg. That's what it felt like.
Hey everyone, welcome. And I am so excited today because I have a fellow integrated theory attachment coach on with me, Sarah Swan. Sarah is also an illustrator and artist and was a teacher before. And now she has done lots of her own personal development journey and has become a coach. And so we're going to hear more about her journey and how she came to coach and more about her coaching as well. Welcome, Sarah.
Welcome. Or thank you.
So, yeah, let's just start wherever you'd like to start. Like on this channel, as people know who've watched any of my other videos, I like to have a particular theme about hearing about how attachment style influences real people in their lives. I think it's really important to learn the concepts and to learn about it. But it can really be helpful to see how it plays out, like those nuances too. So tell us, starting wherever you want, a bit about your own journey with your attachment style.
Sure. So, well, I found PDS, which is where I got my certification from. I found PDS about maybe 4 years ago, 4 years ago, listening to all the videos. And then I joined at the beginning of COVID. I was fearful, avoidant, leaning, anxious, preoccupied. And I also had a lot of emotional turbulence. And it was just I was really bad. I got a divorce like 7, 8 years ago, and all of a sudden, all this stuff came out. I had a lot of fears come up, and it was CPTSD, and I was kind of disassociated. And I had something happen when I was a kid. I was like 5. It was suppressed, came back when I was like 10th grade, and then I went into like a super crazy depression. And then just so much had happened, right, in my life. And then, I'm basically a workaholic and I'm kind of avoiding sort of anything and even having my own feelings, like avoiding how I feel. And I get that divorce and all of a sudden the attachment stuff just comes flaring out. Everything comes flaring out. I was having kind of like fragments of memory come back actually during the first like year. I was also very kind of like suicidal ideation. Like it was really, really bad. Very disassociated. I'm not joking about that. But then the reason why I'm saying this though, I believe it's possible to heal from all this stuff. Because I used to believe I would never be able to find this. I would never feel better. I would be stuck in this. And that's not true. I think when we start using the tools or start doing something, even if it's a little small thing, it adds up over time. And that's what I've seen. I also didn't have very good, my own validation towards myself, super critical. I still have that critical voice come up. But it's definitely a lot better. And I'm also able to kind of self-compassion, and also, to honor my wins. So I think this is really interesting, but in my planner, and maybe some people think it's cheesy, but I actually literally, when I do something that's really super tough and hard, I'm like, wow, you did this. And I write a little smiley face. So, yeah, I definitely have come a long way. And also I used to feel kind of disconnected from people and definitely disconnected with my emotions. And since then, I'm becoming more and more connected. So this stuff that we're teaching as coaches from the integrated attachment theory definitely helps, especially the attachment stuff. Being a fearful avoidant, you can be on both sides, which, it's not always the funnest thing.
No, and I'm also a healed fearful avoidant, so I can definitely identify. But I'm curious because sometimes it looks a little different for different people. You mentioned you were anxious leaning. Could you say a little more, whatever you want to share about it, about how, kind of those two sides played out? Like, were there certain people that, you're anxious with versus dismissive with, or was it more like areas of life?
Yeah. Um, so actually, it's really interesting. When I was married, I was actually leaning towards the DA side, and I remember I met him, and I was feeling all these emotions essentially, or I was kind of like I was definitely more anxious when I first met him, but then within like 3 months, you know how they say within 3 months you start like feeling like the DA person kind of like goes away from the relationship. I'm pretty sure like I projected that onto him that he no longer loved me. Um, and we stopped like, our relationship. Like yeah, I was definitely avoiding. But anyway, um, I was definitely more DA in that relationship. And then I divorced him and suddenly I become more anxious, preoccupied, which was so odd because I might have had some periods in my life where I think I was a little bit more anxious, but I've never been this anxious in my life as I was 7, 8 years ago when I got my divorce. And I describe it as a little girl. Imagine a mother and you're clinging. You're clinging to that leg. That's what it felt like. I also like at the time I had early childhood sexual abuse that happened. I was sexually avoidant until like a recent, until I don't know, 3 years ago, let's say. But before then, I would hang out with gay guys because they felt safe. And with those gay guys, I often felt this pull towards them. And I would always want to hang out with them. And I remember this one guy, like he needed help at like 12 midnight. And here I am already in my PJs, not even really considering myself and getting up and going to get him because that's what I did. Or cleaning up after his house or buying him presents when he didn't buy me presents back. Like I was definitely very codependent and very enmeshed. So that's what I mean by anxious
Mm-hmm.
because I was literally like, I just came to him over and over again. And of course, I guess the fact that he was wanting to be in the relationship, he definitely had some things going on as well. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because yours, it sounds like it was with different people and then also time, like a certain period in your life was like when it showed
Yeah.
up more or not, which is really interesting. And I think it's important too that you mention, the other experiences, the trauma that you'd been through. All these other pieces of our lives will sort of interact with our attachment style and also be influencing the healing journey as well. So I think it was important that you brought that up. Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about when you found the personal development school, when you found PDS.
Yeah. When I first found it, I was still very chaotic, like very chaotic. And with that, the gay guy that I was talking to, I would often want to, even though I had that anxious part, there was parts of me every so often, I would be like, oh, I don't want to hang out with you, like just randomly. And I remember he would be like, you're confusing, right? Because like, wanting that
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
connection, but then not wanting it. Um, but anyway, I found it. I was looking up videos and I think I found Thais's and I also found like, what is it? Brianna McWilliams and then Alan, I'm going to say his last name wrong, Robarge or whatever. I found him. And plus at the same time, I was also doing therapy. So that was definitely helping. And yeah, so I found her videos and I really aligned with them and they definitely helped. And it was really confusing too, because sometimes I would align with the DA side and then sometimes the AP. It was interesting how I could go back and forth and I just resonated with her videos. And then during the beginning of COVID, I actually lost all my jobs. I was a dog
Mm-hmm.
walker and a nanny. I used to be a teacher. So I was a nanny at the time and also to support myself because I was really dysregulated at one time. I could not handle like an actual regular job. But I was there kind of alone, having to support myself through it. And so, anyway, I lost the jobs, freaked out, but it led me to kind of PDS at that point. I was able to get in for, I think I got in for, they had like a discount. And so I got in for a cheaper amount. And it really was life changing to join PDS as like part of their school.
How was it to start to do the work? Because I know that can be a challenge just to really do it, Like it reminds me of actually even of just what you were saying. the writing it in your notebook. And like maybe it would be different for someone else to write it in the planner, like to validate yourself. Might be a different technique, but the fact that you're doing it as a habit like that, I think is such an important example of like really doing the work,
Right. So when I first joined, I wouldn't say that I was really doing the work, but here's the thing. I tell people, especially when they get upset that they can't actually sit down and do the work, I tell them just to do the videos. And if they're jumping from back and forth to one thing to another, that's okay. I think it's part of the process. I know for me, I literally like would have something coming up in my life and then I would change the course and then just listen to it, right? And then I probably didn't even finish the course. I was like, I don't know, like 3 videos in, and then I would go to another course, right? Or I would listen to a webinar. And yeah, so I definitely was very chaotic at the time. And I do understand that it's really hard to sit down and actually do the work. I had trouble doing the work. I actually couldn't do auto suggestion until I want to say like 2 years ago. And now what I do is I do auto suggestion. I do it like in my daily life. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and also I just wanted to say too, for people that are more anxious, preoccupied, and have trouble doing the work, the way that I was able to actually finish a course for the first time, and I think it was the codependency it was either that or the perfectionism course. I actually started a group on Facebook through some other members. Actually, I had started 2 groups. One was for codependency, one was for perfectionism. And we did the work together and we did the exercises together. And that was how I finished my first course for those who are having trouble actually doing the course. So
That's
coming up
fantastic.
with
And you still have that Facebook group going, right?
I do actually.
Yeah.
Well, it's just 4 people,
Oh,
including
okay.
me. And then there's another group that I started that I'm still friends with as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's such a good. I love all of what you said there though, because I think the fact that you normalized the fact that sometimes it's not like you're going to jump in and do it so perfectly here, right? That you normalize that maybe it's okay for it to feel chaotic at the beginning. That doesn't mean you're not going to do it. You're still adjusting. Maybe you're still, processing, trying to even get into the work. I think that's really, really important, and good advice for me to
Right.
remember
And
too
your
as a
nervous
coach. So
system,
I
sometimes
appreciate
your
hearing that.
nervous system is not ready for it.
Yeah. But then also that there are tools, like maybe doing it with other people. There's all kinds of ways that we can do the journey of healing and do the processing that will help. Obviously, having a coach helps. Maybe having a group helps. All of those things.
For sure.
And so, how did you decide to be a coach? If you remember, I don't know if it was a specific decision point or how it came to you, but that you wanted to do this
Well, right after
as
my
work.
divorce, I always
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be a coach after my divorce
Mm.
because I was struggling so hard and I had so much trauma, that like I was in a traumatized state, and
Yeah.
I felt like I guess I was in that victimhood kind of state when I first got my divorce too as well. But I actually created a site, a whole website dedicated to artists. And I still have the blueprints of this, but it was called To Becoming One Healing Arts. And it was about helping people heal using the creative arts. And I do think that this might come back around because I'm currently coaching people in like attachment theory and if they have anxiety or codependency, shame, perfectionism. But I do think that eventually I do want to switch to helping more artists. But anyway, I digress about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so at that point I did want to be a coach, and then it kind of like ebbed and flowed, and I was trying art, I was trying like design, I was trying to make it in these other fields. But then
Yeah.
I would feel like a failure and I would feel rejected. I would feel not confident about it. And so that was a struggle. And then just on a whim, I said, I really want to sign up for this coaching thing. So I heard that Thais like started this program and someone said, well, just go ahead and do it. And I had the money in my account and, yeah. And so I just signed up and then I started coaching. What I've been doing is I tell people, or I'm like, okay, this is my goal. And then sometimes I don't do it right away, but it normally happens within a few months. And I was like, okay, I just have to coach one person, and it was free. So I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from there.
Mm-hmm. It's such a good example of just how to do that kind of thing, because a lot of people may not know this, but because we tend to think of it in regard to relationships and that kind of thing, but a lot of the work you do on your attachment style also affects other areas of your life, and that includes things like making progress on goals, things like that I didn't almost realize that to start with, but there's a lot of information on that, now how to not self-sabotage, what's going on with that, right, where your subconscious and your conscious mind are at odds. So it's interesting because, even we as coaches have
Yeah,
that and can use those tools, within our own coaching practices and what we're
for
building.
sure. For sure.
So I know you have tons of resources, and you have some upcoming offerings. So I'd love to hear about those, and I will put them in the description box as well, so people can connect with you and hopefully work with you.
I have a Meetup group, and it has a bunch of resources there. So there's stuff for workshops, and then there's also Ask the Coach, which I started doing every other Friday. It's a 1 hour segment, and people join in and they can just ask questions. Sometimes people are kind of quiet, and so like maybe I'll just like go over the attachment stuff, and they can learn more about the attachment styles. So I have that, and then I also have workshops, and I've been doing attachment based workshops, and then recently I did a belief reprogramming workshop. And these workshops don't just go into the tools and like the attachment styles, but I really like to research. So I actually like included why we want to reprogram, like what's going on with our brain. And also like with attachment, I actually have videos linked to it that show what attachment looks like, why touch is important, why attachment is more than just providing for the physical needs. And like even a quote from Gabriel Mate and that kind of stuff. So I go more into depth, and then I do these workshops, and then I have people normally ask questions, and they get some more information about it, and I help them through some stuff. I also have an Etsy. I've been doing worksheets and workbooks and other printables, and that has over 20 different workbooks. So like somatic and emotional processing, belief reprogramming, helping with like if you have negative thoughts like cognitive distortions. I also have like healthy eating, stuff for financial. I have my own website, which by the way also has the worksheets and workbooks, and also has some free ones on there that are just like samples. I have an Instagram. I've been posting for about a year and a half on Instagram, and it's infographics. I have over 400 infographics that are related to mental health and personal development. So they're like these cute, people keep on saying they're warm and fuzzy kind of stuff. And I didn't even realize, I keep on getting that comment. So anyway, they're really, my goal with all these things, like the visual stuff, because I am an artist, I want them to look pretty, because the reason why I created these workbooks was because I myself was originally having trouble doing the worksheets, right? And so I was like, well, if I make them pretty, I'm going to more likely want to use them. And so that's my reasoning for that. And then I do have a paid workshop coming up. That's on September 30th. And it's $30 for 2 hours. And it's about attachment theory. And again, it goes really into depth about like the attachment styles and why it's important. And I also would like to, hopefully we can have like conversation and we can really talk in depth. And then because I said I have workshops as well on my Meetup, my goal eventually is to have some maybe like an hour workshop that would be free. That would be kind of like a mini workshop. And then, or maybe like the hour would be 30 minutes of content, and then 30 minutes of just people like question and answer, versus the ones that are paid will be $30, but 2 hours, and you get way more content. So yeah.
That's
So I think
amazing. I
that's
hope
all.
everybody checks those out because just all of these free and low cost resources that you're putting out there and having all these ideas for and continuing to do. So hopefully people will find you. We'll definitely put also the links in the description box for those. So that's
Oh yeah, and
amazing.
I forgot. Yeah, I also have a Facebook group, and I do newsletters every 2 weeks. So yeah.
Wow. So get on the list for the newsletter too and check out the Facebook
Oh
group.
yeah, the last one was about anxiety. So.
Okay. Yeah. And it's such a variety of topics too. I really love that too. So I'm sure
Mhm.
people can find all kinds of things that are useful there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just one final question for today, and then stay tuned because we'll have another segment with Sarah coming up too soon. Um, what is your favorite thing about coaching?
I, you know, I do these workshops. I started doing these workshops and like the Ask the Coach and plus just regular coaching for people. And I really like it when something happens and they have like an aha moment. But just the fact that I can feel like I'm helping them and I'm able to make their lives a little bit better. So I think that's kind of what I like. I keep on getting all these like great testimonials and stuff like that and just helping them in their life. So it makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, I think that's what I like the best.
That's so wonderful to hear, and I can definitely identify with that too. That it's just really fulfilling.
Yes, for
Well, thank
sure.
you so much for being with us, and everyone, stay tuned for the next segment as well. But thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.